All right. So can people hear me? All right. Good morning. So so today I want to talk about a new use case of Bitcoin that we're developing. And we're all very excited about the renaissance of Bitcoin, like Ordinals project. And this is another use case to follow that renaissance. So let me explain this use case. A little bit of history. Of course, Bitcoin is the first blockchain in the history, invented by Nakamoto. It's a proof of work blockchain. That means it's secure by work, by hashing. Since then, many new blockchains have developed. And all these new blockchains, most of them, the new ones, are proof-of-stake blockchains. And so now we have an interesting dichotomy in this Web3 economy. Is we have Bitcoin on the one side, which is 50% of the asset. And then we have proof of stake on the other side, the other 50% of the crypto asset. These two parts of the economy are somewhat isolated. As we all know, Bitcoin has no smart contract. And so its main use case is store of value. And so there has been relatively little interaction between Bitcoin and the rest of the ecosystem, whereby between proof-of-stake chain, there are a lot of bridging and interoperability and so forth. Now, so we've been thinking, because Bitcoin has this isolation, is there a way to connect better Bitcoin with the rest of the ecosystem? So the idea is the following. So if you think about the proof-of-stake blockchains, the proof-of-stake economy, the basis of this economy is staking, okay? So staking is essentially using capital to provide security. As we know, in Web3, the core of the Web3 thesis is security. So therefore, we need capital. Now, in current-day blockchains, the capital is typically provided by the native asset of the blockchain. And typically, when you bootstrap a blockchain, this native asset is small, the market cap is small, and so you have to pay a lot of inflation to acquire this security. So it is a huge cost to the blockchain, and it distracts it away from building interesting applications. So the idea is that Bitcoin, although it's isolated, it is still 500 billion asset, huge asset pool. And so our idea is to use this asset pool and convert it into a staking asset and use it to provide a source of capital to help secure proof-of-stake systems. So here we give some examples of proof-of-stake blockchains, but you can imagine many new blockchains, new layer 2, new decentralized sequencer, new middleware, and they all can enjoy this huge staking asset, Bitcoin. And so paradoxically, Bitcoin is proof of work, but its asset is very decentralized. And so as a staking asset, it's actually very powerful. So first of all, it is unencumbered, so it is not used to secure its own chain. So therefore, when you use it to secure other chains, it has less of an over-leveraged issue. Two, it's relatively idle. Most of this Bitcoin is actually store of value, right now earning very little yield. And so therefore, the staking opportunity would be rather attractive to many of these Bitcoin holders. Number three is, compared to other crypto assets, it's less volatile because it's a very old asset. And volatility is bad for security. And so the less volatility, the better for security. And Bitcoin holders tend to hold these assets for a long time. And so that's also a good thing for stability of staking, because you want people to hold the asset for a long time, and you can use it to stake for a long time. And of course, it's decentralized, the most decentralized asset. So if you combine it, then we have this nice picture, is Bitcoin staking, where it's a marketplace. And on the left-hand side are Bitcoin holders. These could be whales, these could be Bitcoin miners, this could be small individual retail Bitcoin holders. All of them could participate and contribute the Bitcoin capital into a staking opportunity for the proof-of-stake economy on the right-hand side. So from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, we have security and from the right-hand to left-hand with yield. And from the Bitcoin holder point of view, they have the opportunity to hold Bitcoin, which is probably one of the most attractive crypto asset, if not the most attractive, and at the same time has an opportunity to earn altcoin yield by providing security to the chains, to the middleware that they are interested in, and this provides an upside. On the right-hand side, the chains, the proof-of-stake systems, have the benefit of a very large pool of potentially cheaper, more decentralized, stable source of security, so that they can focus on developing their ecosystem, their application. So that is the marketplace that we want to create using this concept of Bitcoin staking. And what we're building right now is a Bitcoin staking protocol, that enables these two marketplaces for the holders and for the chains to participate in. Now, from the point of view of the two sides, one very important thing is security. The Bitcoin holders are very conservative, typically about the Bitcoin. And so this protocol has to be very secure. On the other side, from the point of view of the chains, this should be a proper staking asset and therefore provide an appropriate collateral to secure the chain. And so the protocol that we built in this project called Babylon, Bitcoin staking protocol, has two properties. One is it is a true collateral, so it provides full slashable safety for proof-of-stake chains. So in proof-of-stake chains, a very important property of security is that the staking asset should be a collateral, such that if there's any bad behavior on the part of the validator, the collateral can be slashed. Very, very important property. And we achieve that. And two is we achieve trustless staking, which basically says that the Bitcoin holders does not need to bridge or send the asset to any centralized custodian. And this distinguishes our solution with typical bridging of Bitcoin, because bridging of Bitcoin needs bridging or needs to send to a custodian like BitGo, and our protocol is completely trustless and self-custodial. Now, if you think about it, it's pretty remarkable that we can achieve this because Bitcoin actually doesn't have any smart contract to do any intelligence. And yet, we can achieve these two properties together. So when I told people about this, they don't really believe me that we can actually do this. They think I'm bullshitting. And so therefore, I would like to spend 3 minutes in sort of going through a little bit more detail on how the protocol works from the point of view of the Bitcoin staker. All right, so here's the Bitcoin chain. Now the Bitcoin staker, Alice, so every cryptographic protocol has to have an Alice. Okay, so this is Alice here. Alice is a staker. She has 1 Bitcoin, and she wants to stake it to secure her favorite proof-of-stake chain, And so what she does is she sends a transaction to the Bitcoin chain to initiate a staking contract. And in this staking contract, the Bitcoin can go through a so-called time lock of a certain duration, say 6 months' time, and stake in 6 months. Or Alice will burn the Bitcoin, send it into a burn address. Okay, so these are the only two possible outcomes of this Bitcoin. Notice this is self-custodial, so Alice have the private key to this Bitcoin. All right, so why are there these two strange options? Well, one is that you want to lock the Bitcoin into a contract for 6 months. That's natural for staking. Two is very strange, because why would Alice burn the Bitcoin herself? That's really weird, right? That's her Bitcoin. So as I explain the protocol, we'll see. So in any protocol, security protocol, there are 2 paths. One is a happy path, which means that Alice will now start validating the proof-of-stake chain, And after 6 months, Alice can now unstake and obtain reward. So this is a happy path. Now, in the case of unhappiness, that is, Alice suddenly becomes devil and start to attack the chain. Okay? So this is the time in which we have to slash Alice Bitcoin. Now, Alice is self-custodial, so how can we take the Bitcoin away from Alice? So that sounds weird. So what we do here is the following, okay? So to connect Alice validation to Alice contract on the Bitcoin chain, we require that Alice uses the same private key that controls the Bitcoin to sign blocks on the as a validator of the proof of stake chain, okay? So the private key is the same. So that couples the two systems together. In case of bad behavior, like double sign 2 blocks, then what we could do is that in our protocol, we use a very, very special type of signature scheme, which have the property that when you sign 2 blocks at the same height in the blockchain, then Alice key will be extractable by anybody who observe these 2 blocks and observe the 2 signatures. So this is a so-called one-time extractable signature. And once it's extracted, then anybody can now provide this as a fraud proof to the Bitcoin chain, send a transaction, and burn Alice's Bitcoin by spending it using the private key. So this is how slashing is enforced, and this is how we prevent Alice from double signing blocks. Okay. And so it has, we have also other interesting properties. For example, we could achieve fast unbonding. So I think a speaker in the early talk says that in Ethereum, unbonding can take many, many weeks. Using a special protocol, what we call a time stamping protocol, we can actually make an unbonding process to, say, 3 days. So every time you request an unbonding, you can do it in 3 days. And one thing very interesting about protocol is that it can actually work in conjunction to almost any proof of stake protocol that you have. Okay? So we know that, for example, many, many different blockchains have many, many different proof of stake protocol. And what our design is a modular design, which we call a finality gadget, which allows us to add this special signature on top of any existing protocol and achieve this Bitcoin staking functionality. So this primitive now can be applied to many, many different types of protocol in many, many different types of ecosystem. So we think that this concept is pretty powerful. Okay. Yeah, so the architecture of the system is the following. All right. So Bitcoin is the source of security. The proof of stake chains is where the validators uses our special signatures to sign blocks. We want to coordinate the system, so we break down the system architecture into 2 parts. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, we have the proof of stake chain, and we call this the data plane. So this comes from Web 2 language of networking. So the data plane is when the validators are validating blocks, the data. Okay? Babylon runs a control plane, that helps to coordinate these validators with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is where the staking asset is held. So this is the coordination between the Bitcoin and the proof of stake chains. Now, why do we need this coordination? Well, one very important coordination function is to coordinate between the 2 chains, the Bitcoin chain and the proof of stake chain, in terms of time. Why do we have to coordinate in terms of time? Because the staking asset is maintained on the Bitcoin chain. So on the Bitcoin chain, we keep track of who has how many stakes and when they unbond and when they join the system. On the proof of stake side, we have to control which validators can vote and how much voting power they have. So we need to coordinate, so when a staker unbonds, we need to remove the voting power from the validator, etc. So to do that, we have to coordinate in terms of time, and we do that through a technology called time stamping. And so Babylon offers this technology called Bitcoin timestamping, which basically uses a timestamping method to coordinate between the proof-of-stake blockchain and Bitcoin. And we already built this timestamping, actually. And our initial ecosystem for proof-of-stake chain is the Cosmos ecosystem. So in the past few months, 5 months ago, we launched this timestamping testnet with 31 Cosmos chains, all timestamped to Bitcoin through Babylon. So Babylon itself is a Cosmos SDK chain. And all these chains like Osmosis, Say, Akash, they're all timestamping to Babylon. And Babylon is timestamping to Bitcoin to enable all of these blockchains to get timestamped. You may ask, well, why don't they all of them directly timestamp to Bitcoin? Why do we need Babylon? And the reason is because Babylon is an aggregator of timestamp. And this allows us to scale up the timestamping process and enables Bitcoin and every one of these proof-of-stake chains to be coordinated in time through Babylon. All right, and so this is what we built. And in the next step of our roadmap, we will overlay the Bitcoin timestamping onto this testnet, and we plan to launch this testnet in a few months. Okay, so my time is coming to an end. But our final goal, our vision, our long-term vision of this project is to use Bitcoin staking as one method to unify the Bitcoin and the proof-of-stake economy so that we don't have this dichotomy anymore. Bitcoin is a very powerful asset, and this asset will help us provide injection of security, liquidity to the proof-of-stake economy. So if you want to find out more about this work, you can take a look at the light paper on our website. And these are all the co-authors on this work. Thank you very much.